First thing, I'm going to go to the side view by pressing the space bar here, and I'm going to press Alt and just click and drag to get some space above the grid line here. So now let's make this bigger, and I can also zoom out to make the grids smaller so that we can actually use the grid snap to draw the shape that we wanted. I'll go to Create, Curve Tools, CV Curve Tool, and let's start from this starting point. Okay, then go over here and then just build up the shape that we want. Okay, you can either keep it sharp or you can just keep it rounded. I want to keep it rounded. If you want to keep it sharp, maybe you can just add a couple of more points there so that it will try to make it as sharp as possible. So let's just add points here. We can actually change these points while creating as well. If you make a wrong point, you can use the middle mouse button, click and drag to adjust its position. So let's continue building that, and maybe over here. Yeah, let's make that. And then I can just finish up coming down. If you want, you can just fill it up here as well, or you can actually make a full shape right there. And once we reach back to the center, press Enter key to finalize the shape. And if you further want to make modifications, you can simply right click and choose Control Vertex. And using the Control Vertex, we can further fine tune this to the desired shape that we want. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so now let's just check this in the perspective view. That's how it's going to look. If you think it's too big, we can actually make it smaller because we have the center point right there. I think that looks fine. Now, when you're creating houses and putting furniture inside there, you need to be mindful of the scale that you're using. So let's say maybe you create a table or chair of the same size and your flower vase is too big, you can actually make it smaller to fit the exact size. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make a 360 sweep to create a 3D shape from this. So make sure that you're in modeling and then go to surfaces. There you will find revolve. Let's go to options of revolve. And in the options, let's just reset everything. Okay, and we want the axis to sweep is y-axis. That's fine. And then we have surface degree to be cubic, so that it gets smooth. And 360 degrees complete sweep. That is fine. And then we're going to change something here in the way how we want to create the object. So we don't want a NURBS. We want a polygon. And the polygon should have quads, not triangles. And I'll use control points as a reference to create the number of faces. Let's hit revolve, and there you go. So once we do this, we might get this black in color. That is because it's actually looking at the wrong direction. So let's go to mesh display and change reverse direction. There you go. So it might not look smooth. All we need to do is press 3, so that will smooth it out. Now, after creating, you might think that, okay, I think this has gone too much outside. So I can simply go back to my edge, go back to my curve, right click, choose Control Vertex, and I can actually use my side view as well for getting this done. And we can actually see the result in the perspective. So let's just press 4 here, okay, and I can just either make these guys go out. Let me turn off my grid snap. All right, or I can bring these things inside as well. All right. So once we got the desired result, we can make finer changes. Make sure that it's not coming out here like that. That would give you problems. So let's make sure that this stays in. There we go. So once we get the final result and we don't want to make any more changes, then we can go to Edit, Delete by Type, History. So now this is final shape, and the curve will no longer have any control over this shape. So I go to Control Vertex and I change this, it is not going to affect it. So once we get to that point, we can actually delete the curve, or we can actually hide it out. Let me just go to my outliner, and I can actually select the curve, make it 0 for visibility, so we get that out of the way. Okay, so next thing that we want to create is we want to create a flower. Okay, so to be more precise, let me just open that file. Okay, so we want to create a flower like this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 petals. So 7 or 5 should be fine. So to create the flower, now keep in mind, whenever you're creating a new object, better to create it right in the center so that we can actually make rotations, multiple copies and stuff like that much easier. Okay, so we can also put these guys in different layers just to organize stuff. So I'm going to select the pot. I'm going to create a new layer, call it where did you go? Okay, so I can call this as Vase. Okay, hit save, and we can actually hide it and keep it out of our way to create the flower. Okay, so whenever we need it back, we can simply click on this button and it will be there. Okay, so to start with the flower, I'm going to start with the petals. So I'll go to Create, and I can either use a cube or I can use a plane as well. So this time I'm going to use a plane, and we can just reduce the number of divisions. Let's just make it very less to be controllable, so I'll say 4 should be fine. Now notice what happens if I move this object as an object. Okay, so if I just take my move tool, I'm sorry for the background noise, if I move this out, okay, you can see that the pivot point is here. But instead, if I select all these vertices and move the vertices, and then I select the object, you can see that the object's pivot point is in the original place. Okay, so keep in mind, when you are moving an object using the vertex or edge or face, then the pivot point does not get affected, which is good. So in our case, that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to just pick up these vertices, okay, and move it out, and then we can further make changes to these vertices as well. Okay, so I'm going to select all these guys, make them smaller, okay, and I actually want to push these guys more closer, like so, and keep these guys closer as well, and I'll do the same thing here, like so, and like so. Now we want to make further tweaks here. I'm going to push these guys down, essentially making the shape of a flower's petal. Okay, so these guys can also be pushed down a bit. These two can be pulled up. Okay, so it starts to get the shape that we wanted for a flower's petal. Okay, so I'm going to open that file and just show it to you. So you can see that we're basically creating this kind of a shape. So it's not exactly like this, but I think it'll make a perfect flower. So if you want to keep it thin like this, you can, or you can actually make it thicker as well. So I'm going to make it thicker. So I'll select all these faces. Okay, Shift right click, extrude face, and then pull it out. All right, now just to make some bit more dynamism, we can also adjust these guys like this, so that we have a bit of arc shape instead of just a flat shape. So that's how a flower looks when it is actually blooming. Okay, perfect. So now, remember I kept the pivot point right here so that it becomes much easier for us now just to make rotations and making copies. Okay, so to make copies, I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate Special Options, and there I want to make copies. Now, I don't want the copies to be independent. I want those copies to be editable just by editing just this one object. So for that, I can, instead of choosing copy, I'm going to choose instance. So whatever change I make to one of these, it will do the same change for the others as well. So now let's decide how many copies we want. So we need a total of 6 copies. We need 7 number of petals. Let's see if there is too much gap. Maybe we'll just add more. And then I need to decide which axis of rotation that I want. So this is going to be y-axis. You can just rotate that axis and find out which one it is. Okay, so y-axis, we need to find out exactly what degree we need to give. Okay, so the easiest way to do that is just open your calculator. Okay, so in the calculator, we're going to divide 360. That's the total rotation. We're going to divide that by 7, so we know exactly how many degrees we need to give. So it's roughly 551, so 51.4. I think 51 should be fine. So let's try it with 51. Let's see what happens. So 51 and 6 copies. That's it. So let's try it out. Click apply. Boom. Yeah, that looks good. Very close enough. That's fine. All right, so we get a flower. And as you can see, there's also something right in the middle. So let's just create a simple sphere there. Go to sphere, polygon sphere, and the sphere can be made smaller. I think it can just cover that entire space. So we won't actually see the gap there. And then I want to make it flat. Yep. That's it. And if I smooth all these things down, it would look much better. So let's press 3 to smooth it out. Yep, that's our flower. Okay, so now you can see that it's actually looking vertical. It's not flat. So what we can do is we can actually select all these guys. You can even see it from the outliner. I can either combine them or I can group them. Grouping is much better, so I'll press Ctrl G to group it all out. Ctrl G. We need to close that. Ctrl G, so that groups everything. We're going to call this as flower. Okay, we can as well create a new layer for that flower, and we can keep it there too. So FLOWER, and that's it. Hit save. It says that the same name is there, so I'll say flower layer or just flower L or anything you like. Hit save, and there you go. So now if I turn on my vase, it's actually sitting on top of the flower. So what I need to do is just before turning that on, I just want to bring this up, and I also want to rotate it to a certain direction. So let's say this way. Let's say 90 degrees, and that's facing our direction there. Okay, I think it's too small. I can make it a bit bigger just by scaling the entire group. That looks good. So now let's just make a few more copies. So let's say Control D. I'm going to just pull this out. Control D, pull this out here. Control D. Pull this up, Control D, here, and so on. I think that's fine. Control D, maybe one more last piece right here. Instead of all of them facing the same way, we can actually rotate that a bit, like so. It looks weird looking from the other perspective, but we're just taking this two-dimensional image as reference, so that's what we're getting. We can actually change the positions to fit them in different angles if we want. Okay, so now we need to create these little sticks or parts of the plant to complete the model. So for doing that, we can do it in many different ways. We can simply take a cylinder, just create that, or we can use bridge, or we can also use something called extrude here. So I'm going to show you a couple of methods. So this first one we're going to look at is just creating a cylinder. Where is cylinder? Yes. Okay. So I can just simply pull it up, make it smaller, and I can turn off this cap. Okay. Now let's keep it smaller so that we can just add details if needed later. So I'll make it as 8. Okay. So let me just make this bigger. Okay. So this top one, we're going to rotate that and then push it over here. Just make it smaller. That's it. So this bottom one, we can keep it down here. So this is very traditional, very simple, very straightforward method. I can actually add details beyond this wherever I need. So I can simply go to edge loop tool, just add, actually added 3 edge loops, 4 edge loops. That's fine. Or you can just simply add one by one. I'm going to go to the, let's select, shift right click, edge, insert edge loop tool options. Okay. So last time I added 4 edge loops, that's why we have 4. So let me just reset that. Click, that adds a point. I can just adjust it to the way I want. Okay. Just went a little bit weird, that's fine. And then I can add more points. So let's say I'll click on this guy, add 1 point here, adjust that, just rotate it, and add 1 more point here, adjust that, okay, and add more points. So let's say 1 here, adjust that, add 1 more point, so like this you can simply add as many points as you want and adjust that just to get the shape that you want. Even this looks nice, or you can just keep it out here as well. Okay, so once we smooth it out, press 3, and that looks nice. Right, so this is just a simple, straightforward method just by using a cylinder shape. Now let's do a little bit complicated method for this guy. This time I'm going to basically pick up, let's say a cube, and we can actually have a copy of that same cube to basically bridge the shape. So I'll just push this out a bit, okay, and I'm going to make a copy of that. Control D, then pull it up and then pull it over here. Okay, so we have 2 objects here. So 1 object up here, 1 object down here. So let me just press Shift key, select both of them. Okay, so select both of them, right click or shift right click and combine them first. So now it becomes 1 object. So 2 objects as 1 object. And now what I need to do is select this face, shift select this face, shift right click, and now I can do something called bridge faces, right? So if I go to the bridge faces, you can see that it actually connects between them there. And if I just go to the curve type and choose blend and add more divisions here, you can see that it actually smooths out that entire shape. So we could have done the same thing with the cylinder as well, so that would basically make the entire shape to be a bit more smoother, but still we can also increase more divisions and press 3, it would also become smooth. Okay, so that's the second method. We can also use something called extrude here. Okay, so for extrude we basically need two curves. Okay, so instead of just using polygons, we're going to use a couple of curves. So first thing, we need to have circle. So let's create a circle. It's going to be somewhere here. Make it smaller. There you go. And then from the circle, we need to create a curve. So I'll just turn off the vase just to get more clarity here. Okay, so this curve that we're going to draw should basically start from this circle. Okay, circle center point. So I will go to create and choose curve tools. We're going to start with the CP curve tool. I'm going to start from roughly here. Okay, and then I can just draw the entire shape. Okay, so we're going to just leave it somewhere here. And then I can make further fine tuning here. Press enter. Go to control vertex. I'm going to move these points over here. Okay, so now I can adjust these points. Basically to your liking, whichever way you want the path to go. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to make basically to sweep this circle along the curve that I have created. So let's select the curve, the circle first, then shift select the path or the curve. Select this guy, shift select this guy, and go to surfaces, and there we have extrude. Let's go to options here. We're going to just reset everything. Okay, so we want this tile to be tube. That's the exact shape that we want. And then we want the resulting position at the path. Okay, we don't want the result to start from this circle. We want it to start from the path. So we want to follow that path. And then for the pivot, just use the components that we're going to create. Orientation is going to be based on the path's direction. And again, the resulting object is going to be polygon. And it's going to have quads, control points. Okay, so keep this values in mind and hit create. There you go. So we basically get a shape or smooth shape based on the curve that we have created. And then we can also further make some couple of changes here. So let's say I can just adjust the scale a bit when it goes to the end, something like that. So that looks a bit better. And then we can also control rotation and things like that. I think that's fine for now. Now, one little problem that we have is it looks black. You know what to do. Go to mesh display and reverse. And if I press 3, that will smooth it out. Okay, so if I just turn this on, so we get, it looks a bit thicker. We can actually make it thinner by controlling this control curve as well. So if I just make the circle to be smaller, so it will become thinner as well. Okay, so this is basically a 3D object, so we should not have the flowers facing like this. So I can actually select one of these guys, press up arrow, okay, to select the entire group. So we can actually just rotate these guys and place them in different locations. So one may be facing like this, be too far, closer, maybe a bit further down. And this guy can also be moved, rotated, maybe just facing upwards. This one can be facing other side here. And then based on the positions that you're putting them in, you can just create these curves just to fill up that space. And if you want to have more flowers, you can add more flowers. If you want leaves, you can add leaves. Do whatever you want based on the kind of need that you have.